can try and win championships, and that's what it's all about. When you look from the outside and you watch this team, I know we're going to have a real good, solid hockey team this year.
Welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Eric Wilson. Today, we're going to be taking a long preview at the upcoming 2022-23 season and how this could be the perfect season for the New York Rangers. Of course, there's certain things from last year that the Rangers need to improve on, some things that they need to build on, some things that need to remain consistent from last year. So we're going to kind of talk about all the different things that go into the 2022-23 season and what could propel the Rangers to having that perfect dream year. But before we dive into that, how are you doing today, Eric?
I'm doing good. I'm patiently awaiting for the day that you arrive here at school. I'm very excited for that. But, until then, we got some business to handle, and we're here to see what the Rangers need to do.
Yes, we are. We're going to see what the Rangers need to do. First thing that we're going to start off with, this is something that we've been discussing since the inception of this channel. If any of you have been around since then, it's only been a month or two, and we've grown quite significantly. So thank you all for all the support. But talking about when we were doing those game reactions during the Eastern Conference Finals, when those were going on, the number one thing that we kept hitting on was that the Rangers need to improve their 5v5 play. Even play, they were just not so good down the stretch. They had a lot of struggles in the 5v5. Power plays, sure, they would put up some points here and there in the power play, and they were pretty decent there, but they really need to improve their 5v5 play in the upcoming 2022-23 season if they want to make it deep into the playoffs once again and hopefully raise that Stanley Cup. That's the number one thing, in my opinion, that the Rangers need to improve on, is just improving that 5v5 play. But Eric, I'll let you touch on that and discuss what you think about the Rangers improving the 5v5 play this upcoming season.
Yeah, like you said, as we said all throughout last season, the 5v5 play was the biggest thing that the Rangers needed to improve on, and I think that's the biggest thing that we need to address going into this upcoming season. Throughout all of last season, the Rangers were very good, but I think the real reason that most people, like in the NHL fan base, said that the Rangers weren't true contenders was because of our lack of 5v5 play. You really need to be consistent on every single line off of the power play. You can't solely rely on that. And, towards the end of last season, it improved a little bit at the trade deadline when we acquired Vetrano and Kopp, and it really just added more onto our top two lines. But now that they're gone, it kind of just puts us back in the same position we were towards like the middle of last season. And if we're going to want to win and go far in the playoffs again, we're going to need to see a lot of consistency from the rest of our team. Hopefully Trocheck will be a good improvement to that. But people on like the first and second line really need to step up in these moments where you can't rely only on the moments where you're on the power play. You kind of just got to be scoring all throughout the game. And that's really the only way I can see the Rangers winning the Stanley Cup within the next few seasons is if this 5v5 play definitely like increases in its efficiency.
100%. Efficiency is everything. Consistency is everything. And depth is everything. That's something that we've discussed a lot on this channel as well. Having good lines behind your first and second line, that third line, that fourth line, those players need to play up to standards as well. They need to be solid players for the Rangers, and that's going to really just tie in with the improvement of the 5v5 play. But the next bullet point that we're going to hit on is the goalkeeper, Igor Shesterkin, the 2022 Vezina Trophy winner. We all love him. He's the best player on the Rangers, but we need him to remain the best player on the Rangers. We need Igor to be just as good as he was last season. Maybe not that good. Okay, he was historically good, but he does still need to be an elite Rangers goalkeeper in order for the Rangers to have a really big 2022-23 season. Having such a solid goalie like that, it was him. In that Eastern Conference Finals that was really carrying us through the first couple of games. He was dominant in those first few games. He was dominant all throughout the playoffs and the regular season. So it's going to be huge for Igor just to maintain that high level of play, and that'll be huge for the Rangers as they try to look to have that perfect 2022-23 season. If they do want to raise that trophy this year, Igor Shesterkin needs to continue to be a top three goalie in the NHL. So, Eric, you can discuss Igor and let us know what your thoughts are on him right now.
Like I've said this a million times, the Rangers are a good hockey team. We're good just the way that we are. But without Igor Shesterkin as our goalkeeper, we would not be anywhere to as close as good as we are now. You can look at Igor's stats last season. It was, like you said, a historic season. He played in 53 games. He had a 36-13-4 record with a 2.07 goals against average and a .935 save percentage. Like those stats are incredible. And he really elevated the Rangers to contenders when we were really just like a playoff contender, not really a Stanley Cup contender. But the reason we got as far as we did, as you mentioned, was because of Igor. And if we want to keep up to be as good as we are again, Igor really needs to stay the same. You can't really expect him to have stats as good as he had last season. Like I just said, historic season, probably won't be able to have the exact stats again. But we need a good solid season from him. He's just kind of like Henrik Lundqvist, where he carried our team throughout the mid 2010s, and we kind of need Igor to maintain this play for like pretty much the rest of his career if we want to stay as good as we are. And that also kind of ties into another point I wanted to make on how the Rangers can have a perfect season with our backup, Yaroslav Halak. Last season, it kind of seemed like whenever Igor needed a rest and we would put Georgiev in net, I kind of felt like it was just like an automatic loss at some points. Georgiev had a couple of games where he shined and played really well, but he wasn't like fully reliable. And that's kind of what we need to see from Halak. Igor can't play every single game. So whenever he needs a rest, we're really going to need to rely on Halak to have a good game every single time. I know last season Halak's stats weren't the best, but hopefully, on a new team as a veteran, he can come in and rely on these younger guys to really help him in front with the defense. And hopefully, yeah, Halak and Igor will make a great tandem that can bring us deep into the playoffs.
Yeah, 100%. Georgiev was a solid player by all means, but it was time for the Rangers to move on and try and get a little bit of an upgrade at the position at a cheaper cost. And that's exactly what they did with Yaroslav Halak. Slightly cheaper player who is just a more experienced, a veteran player who's been in the league for a very long time. And you can rely on him to be consistent, to be solid, and back up Igor Shesterkin well. So, that kind of also ties into the depth conversation that we've been having, right? And we're going to continue to have. Not only do your lines need to be solid from front to back, but of course, you got to have some depth at the goalie position. And now I feel like the Rangers are in a better position in terms of goalie depth right now than they were to begin last season. I feel like going into this 2022 season, Yaroslav Halak is going to be a better player than Alexander Georgiev was. And I do think that the Rangers upgraded that situation. But let's also tie back in. We were discussing the 5v5 play. The Rangers need to improve that. But their power play was pretty good last year, and that's something else that we need to tie in here as a big bullet point. The power play needs to stay high. The Rangers were really good on the power play last year. It's really what pushed them as deep into the playoffs as they got. So, Eric, what are your thoughts on the power play? How do the Rangers maintain that high level of efficiency that they had on the power play last season?
I really think you just got to keep the power play lines pretty much the same. I mean, you look at the stats from last season. The Rangers had the fourth best power play in the league at 25.2%. So like they're scoring a power play goal pretty much once every 4 power plays that they have, and that's an incredible number. And just to like add in a little extra, the Rangers also had the 7th best penalty kill in the league at 82.3%. So the special teams for the Rangers is really what carried us. When the 5v5 play was lacking, the special teams is what helped us stay in the playoffs for as long as we did. So while we do need to see an increase in improvement from the 5v5, the best way to also just stay as good and keep improving is to also make sure that the power play keeps producing. Keep putting Kreider in front of the net, have Panarin and Zibanejad on each side, just ripping shots. And, let the kids have a time to shine. We had Kopp and Vetrano on the second power play and the first power play throughout like pretty much the second half of last season. But, now that they're gone, it's time to put the kids on the power play, let them start producing points as well.
100%. Got to get them to produce those points. And of course, the lines are going to be changing quite a bit. But let's go ahead and talk about those lines and get that really, that obvious thing out of the way. The second line center. That was the big discussion heading into the offseason, was that the Rangers needed to replace the shitstorm that was Ryan Strome. They needed to get a better second line center. Andrew Kopp was good. He wasn't able to be re-signed. Vincent Trocheck is stepping in as the Rangers second line center. And we're super excited by Vincent Trocheck. I think that was a phenomenal signing by the Rangers. A big one, a costly one, super expensive for a very long time, 7-year deal. We'll see how that looks in 5 or so years from now. We'll see if that is still a solid move by the Rangers. But right now, that is a very exciting move by the Rangers. That's one that I think can really propel them to a lot more wins in the W column. And I think that was a huge signing for the Rangers. So, Eric, let's discuss Vincent Trocheck and how you think he's going to perform this upcoming season as the 2C.
I'm expecting great things from Trocheck. When he was playing on Carolina, he was a really great player. He scored on us a couple times, and like it wasn't even like one of those things where like he scores and I'm like, damn, that sucks. It was like, wow, that was an incredible goal. Like I couldn't even be mad at what he was doing to the Rangers. So the fact that he's on our team now is very exciting. And really the only thing that we really need for him to do is be better than Ryan Strome. And I think that's very easy for him to do. He's coming in straight onto the second line. He's going to be playing with superstar Artemi Panarin and then most likely Capo Caco on his right. And as long as they just keep producing points and have good chemistry, I think it's going to be good. Ryan Strome, we know how we feel about him. Not the best. All he's got to do is be better. We said it a million times. The one thing that the Rangers needed to do this offseason was find an improvement from Ryan Strome, and I think this is a drastic one. So very excited to see Trocheck play.
Me too, man. I can't wait to see Trocheck line up in a blue shirt. It's going to be great. I think he is going to be a massive improvement on the second line. But let's continue to discuss the second line and discuss one of the teammates that Trocheck has on the second line. Your favorite New York Ranger, Eric, the bread man, Artemi Panarin. He needs to have a huge year. Why don't you discuss what you're expecting out of Artemi Panarin this year and how you feel he can have an impact on the Rangers' upcoming season?
Yeah. I mean, I said this a couple episodes ago if you guys want to go back and watch that, but we're expecting a big 100-point plus season from Artemi Panarin. He's come very close in the last few years, but, due to reasons outside of his control, it's never happened. But I think he's finally going to hit it this season. Like we just said, he has an improvement in his center at Vinny Trocheck, and then having Capo Caco, a young stud on his right, should definitely help him out. The biggest problem that I saw with Panarin last season wasn't his point production. It was the way he was playing outside of the offense. He was scoring goals left and right, putting up assists, but he played differently than usual. It's a weird way. I don't know how to exactly put it, but he was making passes that were like unnecessary, trying to be too fancy with the puck, and it ended up being very costly for the Rangers, especially throughout the playoffs. In last playoffs, he put up 16 points in 20 games, which are great numbers, but everyone still was hating on Panarin just because of the way that he was playing. You need to play good defensively as well. You need to be smart, especially in the playoffs. And if the Rangers really want to be perfect and move on to the Stanley Cup Finals, he really needs to revert back to his old self like he was when he first signed with the Rangers, that like those first 2 seasons where he was putting up points, but then also playing confidently and great defensively as well. So Panarin, keep putting up points, but also be more smart with the puck.
For sure. Confidence is key. He's got to make sure that he's confident and he's ripping the puck into the back of the net. That's super crucial. Artemi Panarin is one of the most valuable players on the New York Rangers. How he performs is huge for the success of the Rangers, but let's discuss from the second line up to the first line. This is a player that we just discussed recently in our most recent video, and that was titled Why Chris Kreider is the Most Important Forward for the Rangers' Success. And so we were just discussing how important Artemi Panarin is for the Rangers this upcoming season. But let's go ahead and touch on Chris Kreider once again, discuss why he is so important and why he needs to maintain that level of play that he had in the 2021-22 season this upcoming year.
I mean, like Chris Kreider, 52 goals last season, incredible. Not many players do that each season. So the fact that the Rangers have a 50-goal scorer on their team is amazing. And, as we touched upon in the episode about Chris Kreider, you look at his numbers and they go up and down all the time. There's like one season where he plays really good and then it goes down and then back up again and then back down. And then throughout the seasons where he is good, he'll start off the season hot, then have like a little bit of dead time and then get hot again at the end of the season. And, for the Rangers to keep winning games and places high in the standings as we want to, he really needs to continue to stay hot. He was so incredible last season because he never had that time throughout the season where he just kind of vanished. He's kept putting up goals throughout the entire season. And that's why he was able to put up 52 goals and be like pretty much the MVP of the offensive core for the Rangers last season. So we need big things from the entire first line. Chris Kreider needs to keep staying in front of the net, scoring goals. Zibanejad needs to keep playing hot. And then most likely Lafreniere really needs to have a breakout season.
Yeah, for sure. And we've talked a lot about Alexis Lafreniere moving up to the first line. That's going to be huge. But I don't want to talk too much about the first and second line. We've done that a lot recently. I want to touch on the third and fourth line before we wrap this up here. Kind of just talking about depth once again. That's kind of been a central message throughout this video. The Rangers need to have solid depth in this upcoming season. There were times last year where the Rangers were down to their third or fourth line, and it was like, the opponent was playing a whole nother team, and it just was a significant drop off in quality. The Rangers would get gassed sometimes, then the third and fourth lines would come in, and it just wouldn't be the same. They just did not have enough talent on those lines to compete, and it really caused them to fall apart a little bit at times in the playoffs and in the regular season. But this upcoming year, we're hoping that there's going to be some improvements on those lines so that the Rangers can maintain that high level of play and push themselves deeper into the playoffs. Of course, there is a bit of a ginormous question mark down there on that fourth line. I know a lot of Rangers fans are saying, please, please, please re-sign Tyler Mott. That's not going to happen at this point. I don't think personally. I don't think the Rangers have the cap space necessary to sign Tyler Mott. Maybe they could make it work. They might have to trade a player or two to sign Tyler Mott. But I don't really know if that's going to be a realistic opportunity for the Rangers before the season begins. So I think more realistically, you're discussing some of these prospects getting called up to the lineup, like Brennan Othman and some other players that we've discussed recently on this channel. Go back and take a listen because we've discussed quite a few of these prospects that could end up, pushing into those third and fourth lines. We've discussed Vitaly Kravtsov as well, how he could have a major impact on the third or fourth line, or maybe even higher. Some people even project him to go higher up in the lines, but we've got him on the third or the fourth. But it's going to be really interesting to see how the third and fourth lines perform this upcoming year, because I think almost more than anything, the performance of those third and fourth lines, having solid depth on this Rangers team is crucial. This could be one of the most important factors for success in this upcoming season. So, Eric, what are your thoughts on the third and fourth lines, and how important is high performance out of those lines, in your opinion, for the success of the Rangers this season?
I think it's the most important thing. I think if the depth performs as well as we want them to, it'll pretty much help every other aspect of this upcoming season that we talk about, like, happen. The depth play is good, 5v5 play increases. If the depth play is good, then there's not as much pressure on Trocheck and Kreider and Panarin, and they can kind of relax and take a breath because they know that the third and fourth lines are going to improve. But yeah, depth is the most important thing. If you want to win a Stanley Cup, you cannot solely rely on your first and second lines. We saw that throughout just these last playoffs. There was a little bit of time where our first and second lines kind of vanished off the face of the earth for a little bit. And, the kid line did everything that they could to keep the Rangers in it. And, they did a great job. But, now the kid line, they've pretty much grown up. Lafreniere and Kakko are going to be in the top six. Heedle's the only kid back still down there on the third line. So if the Rangers want to win, the third and fourth line really need to perform. Hopefully throughout the whole season, every single line will be producing, but we need to know that if there's a little drop off in play from the first and second line, that it will have like the ability to rely on these younger guys on the third and fourth line. I mean, you look at a team like the Colorado Avalanche just won the Stanley Cup this upcoming this past season, and they had amazing depth. They had great guys on the first and second line like McKinnon and Landeskog and Rantanen. But then you also had a guy on the third line like Valeri Nichushkin, who's been just a regular, solid NHL player throughout his entire career, just putting up goals left and right throughout the entire playoffs, and that's how they won. That's the difference between a Stanley Cup winning team like the Colorado Avalanche and the current New York Rangers. We need every single player on every single line to be as productive as possible throughout the season. And if that happens, then I think that's the biggest thing that can push the Rangers to having a perfect season and winning the Stanley Cup.
I completely 100% agree. We've been hitting on it, man. Depth is everything. But I just want you to speak a little bit more specifically, Eric. Give your thoughts and opinions to the viewers on that fourth line. Who could be that center there? Tyler Mott, not likely. Are you on the Brennan Othman train? Who is it that you want to see take that spot?
I think right now to start up the season, I would probably say Kevin Rooney. Either that or, in some miracle, Tyler Mott comes back. But I really don't, it's not possible to currently predict who it's going to be. I feel like throughout training camp and preseason, we're going to see a lot of different forwards come in and play on that fourth line, center line. And, really just whoever performs the best will end up taking that position. But I would say throughout the entire season, expect that fourth line to change a lot while the Rangers just test out different lines to find out what really works. Because we have a lot of young guys. We have also a lot of veterans that we just signed, such as Ryan Carpenter. We just signed him to a 1-year contract this offseason. That's a name that we might see on the fourth line. But yeah, Rangers are going to be testing out a lot of things throughout the next couple of months just to really figure out what works and what doesn't. And by the time the trade deadline comes around, or even just the start of the playoffs, I think we'll really have a solid lineup that we know we can rely on.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be interesting to see how this lineup shuffles, throughout the next month and a half, as we head into October. I believe the first game of the regular season is October 11th, but of course, got some preseason games a couple weeks before that, and training camp kicks off mid-September, and we're going to be covering all of that right here on Fireside Rangers. So if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss a video, because we're covering everything New York Rangers from now to the start of the season, from the start of the season to the end of the season, from the end of the season through the offseason. That's where we are. We're right here on Fireside Rangers. You can hear all the New York Rangers news, rumors, trade speculation, whatever the case might be, discussions, everything is right here on Fireside Rangers. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video. Comment down below what you think is the key to the perfect season for the Rangers, and let us know your thoughts on our keys, our major bullet points that we had for how the Rangers can have the perfect season. Let us know down below. We love to engage with you guys and write back to your comments, so make sure you get involved in the comment section. Like I said, make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video. We'll catch you on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Rangers.
He shoots. He scores! He scores!